Hi, how you going everyone? My name is Marlon Marisha and I am the Sales Manager at SSW, and this is Gerard Backlog.
Hiya.
Gerard's a Solution Architect, and today we're going to present to you a webinar on mastering Scrum and the common pitfalls and how to overcome them. And Gerard has a lot of experience working with Scrum teams as a developer and a Scrum Master. So Gerard, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into this agenda that we're going to cover today.
Yeah, I'm a Solutions Architect at SSW. And basically, I build software using Scrum.
Good.
And that's it, yeah.
But there's a lot more
to it than that.
There's a lot more that you do. And I guess what I found interesting about you, Gerard, and why I wanted to do the webinar is because you've kind of fulfilled all the roles. Mm-hmm. And so you've been a team member coding, you've been a lead on a project as well, and you've been a Scrum Master. And when you work in those different roles, I guess you get to experience the way Scrum works from different perspectives. So
over the last year and a half, I've been involved in 5 projects, all built using Scrum right the way through, and some of them I've been Scrum Master, some of them I've been the lead developer, and some I've been just a team member.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Good.
I have that experience.
Great. So today we want to go through, if you were to implement Scrum in your organisation, in your team, it's pretty easy when you read the manual, the Scrum manual, and you can see that it's not that complicated. But when you actually start implementing it, it can become challenging very quickly. Yeah. And today we want to talk about those specific challenges. So the agenda for today is Gerard's going to go through a bit of a history of Agile and where Scrum fits into that. And then we're going to take all the components of Scrum, all the different parts and roles and meetings, and Gerard will describe it very quickly, and then he'll tell you the challenges that you found and how you've overcome them.
Exactly, yeah.
So, this webinar is great for people new to it and also people having a go at Scrum, because it's real world scenarios. We're not teaching from a textbook here. We've been doing this for about 3 or 4 years at SSW.
So we've been using Scrum, I think, maybe for about 5 years at SSW, but we've been using Agile since the 90s, the very early 90s anyway, so we've got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll be able to share how we implement Scrum. Yes. Maybe if you're implementing Scrum already, maybe you might be able to compare what we're saying and maybe get some ideas from what we're saying. Yeah.
Good. And before we start, there is a chat facility on the page. If you're on the SSW website, there's a chat facility. So we want to encourage you to ask in as many questions as you like and as you can think of. And at the very end, Raj is here with us off camera, and he will hand those questions to us, and we'll have a go at answering them.
Yep, okay.
So when you do that question, don't leave it till the very end, because apparently you have to log in when you ask a question. And so if you leave it till the end, you might get a bit frustrated. So, while you're watching this, try and log in and ask your questions as you go. So, Gerard, let's get stuck into it. Scrum. Give us a little bit of history, a bit of context around Agile, the Agile method and the Scrum method.
To understand Scrum, you need to just backtrack a bit and understand about Agile. So Agile processes came about in retaliation sort of to the old traditional waterfall style plan everything up front approach, which had a lot of high profile failures over the 80s and the 90s. So the Agile movement was really just a set of principles that that a group of people thought would help you build software better, to build better quality software. So one of the things that came out from the Agile movement was the Agile Manifesto, and I've got that on the screen here. And basically this is a small document that just highlights the principles of what Agile is about. And the manifesto is very small, it's only got 4 lines on it. And basically what they do is they favour the things on the left over the things on the right. They think in order to build better software, or better quality software, if you focus on the things on the left-hand side of the page over the things on the right, then you will build better quality software. They're not saying the things on the right aren't important or aren't valid, but they favour the things on the left. So examples you can see here is they favour customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So basically what they're trying to do is get that communication between the customer and lots of communication, rather than dealing with set contracts and getting all the lawyers involved and all that paperwork and everything that slows everything down. And we're talking trying to create some sort of face-to-face communication. So that's the Agile Manifesto, and how that leads on to Scrum, if I move on to my next.
Actually, can we go back?
Yeah, you want to go back there?
There's a couple of things I want to say about that in relation to what I do as a salesperson.
Okay.
There's two aspects to Scrum, I think. There's two kinds of people that work in Scrum. People that work for an internal organisation, where the stakeholders are a part of their business, and then what we do at SSW a lot is where the stakeholders are outside of our organisation, and they're the ones paying the bill.
Okay.
And that becomes very difficult, I think, with Scrum, and it's a real challenge for people to understand how do you make Scrum work in an environment where people want a fixed price contract, where they're paying and they want estimates. When I look at that one there, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, I think customer collaboration is what has been amazing for SSW over the last 3 or 4 years. That we are collaborating more with our clients, we're becoming a team. But at the beginning of the relationship, they don't understand us, and we don't really understand them, and they're trying to trust us, and we're saying, look, let's collaborate together. The contract, let's work through it, but it's not that important, because you'll see as we work, the contract isn't as significant because we'll trust each other. But up front, that's pretty hard to convince a client.
Definitely, we'll look at that. We'll look at that later on, but that is definitely a big thing, is that trust element that's needed, because when people are in an environment where they're faced with unknowns, they want security, and sometimes they think that the way to get that security is a contract. Okay, and I think that Agile doesn't respond well to that, and it favours more collaboration over a contract. And I think that when you use Agile, and when you've experienced using it and you're working with a team that you trust, then you can quickly see how that works a lot better than contract-style negotiations.
And I've been doing this for quite a while, and I've noticed that the customer relationships with Scrum projects run with Scrum, they grow those relationships, and it enhances it. But at the beginning, it's very hard to convince the client. So we've got some very successful projects we've done this year, but at the beginning it was a challenge to get them to do it. And some of them wouldn't agree to it. We had to have these very stringent contracts and fixed price models, but we had to work Scrum into that, and that was a challenge for us. And we'll probably do a webinar next year about fixed price and Scrum.
Definitely.
But I guess what I want to say about that is it's not as cut and dry as that.
Exactly. That's why I said that they favour the things over on the left, but we live in the real world, and people might want these things on the right-hand side. But you've just got to be careful, and this is what we're going to talk about today. You've got to be careful where you need to understand. You need to understand what's going on under the surface in order to judge these situations. So sometimes you might be able to go with things more on the right, as long as you can understand where to balance it.
Okay, let's get going.
So let's move on. So one of the things that I wanted to get, the reason why I mentioned Agile is because then we can talk about where Scrum fits into this. So basically what Scrum is like a prescribed framework to get these Agile principles into your software development process. Okay, so and then a good analogy that I heard someone talk about recently was this thing called the P90X. So have you heard about the P90X?
Vaguely, I can see there's an exercise program.
Yeah, so my boss was saying that everywhere you go in America, you can't move without this being on TV.
Oh, really? Wow.
So basically what this P90X is, it's like a training regime, okay? And it was created by a group of sports nutritionists, sports scientists, all these experts in the field. And basically for 90 days, you follow this program, you do these exercises on this day, you eat this food on this day, you do this, you do that, and by the end of 90 days you will have a healthier body. So I think that this is a really good sort of analogy to Scrum, and Scrum is like this. You apply these principles to your software process, and at the end you will get a potentially shippable piece of software, and that's what it's trying to achieve, something of value for the customer. And I think it's good. The other good analogy that it works well is the fact that if you understand sports science and you understand nutrition and you're following the P90X, then you might be able to replace some of those instructions. So for example, on day 3 it might tell you to eat an egg for breakfast. And if you understand sports nutrition, you might say, okay, well, I want to eat an egg here because it's going to give me protein, so I'll just replace the egg for a protein shake or something like that,
Yes.
because you have the underlying knowledge. And I think that that's the same with Scrum. If you have the underlying knowledge, then you can replace some of the items as long as you know why you're replacing it, and you're replacing it with something.
Yeah. And that's one of the pitfalls, I guess, that we found people fall into, is they read the the Scrum guide and they go, oh well, I'll just drop those meetings, or I won't do that because it's not convenient, and all of a sudden they lose the power of it because they don't understand.
They don't understand what it's trying to do exactly, because everything in the Scrum process has an underlying hidden meaning and what it's trying to achieve, and maybe sometimes it's not as obvious on the surface what it's trying to achieve.
So once people, so when a business starts, we recommend that they follow it as closely as they can, and once they understand the efficiencies and what it's trying to do and accomplish and the collaboration, then they can drop certain components. And we've done that, haven't we?
Yeah.
And we actually do that for certain clients. We change it for individual clients.
Exactly, as long as you don't lose the sort of fundamental element of what it's trying to achieve. So the good example you might do this is if you're a company and you're starting out using Scrum, okay, and you have no experience, then you're probably the equivalent of the fat guy, okay? So the fat guy should probably follow the P90 as close to the regime as he possibly can. And if he isn't going to do something on that day, he should think, why am I not doing that?
Yes.
Is it because I'm being lazy, or is it because I know better? And more than likely it'll be because they're being lazy, okay? Whereas if it was a sports nutritionist or scientist that was following it, they might be able to choose what they want on that day.
Okay, great.
Okay, so so this other picture here that I wanted to show, because I think that this was something that I got from Microsoft, and it sort of encaptured well one of the things that Agile is trying to get people to do. Okay, so in the traditional way of doing things, everything was all very much compartmentalized and structured. So in this example here, they're building a human, and what they do here is they say, right, ear done, eye done, leg done, hand done, and then at the end, and maybe they've got separate people working on all these different parts, okay, maybe working in different countries and stuff, and then at the end they bring it all together, and in this situation here we have this Frankenstein, okay, and also you've got to remember the time between each bit. So you probably can't show the eye to the product, to the person paying the bills, until right at the end when it's all put together. So you've got this time lag between seeing the results of things. So flick over to the Agile way of doing things, and what we try to do is we try to, at the end of every iteration, we try to release something that is potentially shippable or potentially usable. So this example here with the human example, what they do is they create a baby first, so they create this simple end-to-end functionality really early on, and then you grow it as you go. So you give them some actual functionality that is full and complete and can be used, and then you grow on top of it, rather than delivering nothing till right at the end and then trying to deliver.
And then it doesn't work.
And potentially it doesn't work. A majority of times it doesn't, or doesn't work as expected, which is a big thing. That's a
great analogy.
Yeah. Okay. So, talking about Scrum, so Scrum and Agile. So Scrum is this process that allows you to get Agile into your projects. Now, Scrum itself is very, very easy to learn. Okay, so you can see here, these are the only things that you need to know. You need to know 3 roles, 3 artifacts, and 5 events. Once you understand these things, then you pretty much understand what Scrum is all about. But that's the easy part. Okay, the hard part is that making that work in your organisation, and that's what takes time and skill to master. And
I guess that's what today is about.
Yes, exactly.
And I think one of the reasons why Scrum can be difficult to implement successfully is because it's about people, isn't it? It's not a lot of developers are about code, and you build a project and it works or it doesn't. Whereas Scrum isn't about black and white. It's about people's personalities and interactions and how do we collaborate. And
exactly. So
that's why at times developers might find it a little bit of a challenge to get the efficiencies they need to see. But it isn't difficult though, is it?
No, it's not, and I think probably one of the biggest things that you'll find with implementing Scrum in an organisation is the the organizational change that's required or the cultural change that's required. And we'll talk about those as we go.
Well, let's get into it. So we're going to break all these artifacts down.
Yeah, so we'll go into each one of these, and then hopefully we'll talk about some of the common pitfalls that I see when we try to overcome these things.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so let's look at the roles then first. So the first role is the product owner. Okay, so this is the person who is responsible for what the development team is going to build. Okay, so normally 9 times out of 10 this would be in our situation from SSW, the consultancy, is when somebody walks in to our office with maybe an idea for a product, they would probably end up becoming the product owner. But if you were doing this in your own organization, it might be your immediate manager or their manager, somebody like
typically this is someone outside of the development team, whether they're the client or they're a stakeholder within your organization.
Exactly.
They're not a coder, they're not a developer. No. They're the person that makes the decisions.
Exactly. So they will have, ideally they will have knowledge of the business domain, okay, and they will have power within the organization. And they will be responsible for the vision of the product. So they're responsible for the what.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
So what are the challenges that you found working with product owners?
Right, okay. So at SSW, what we favour in a product owner is we like two things. We like them to have authority when it comes to budget, okay, and we like them to be present, okay, to be available. And we've had lots of, so they're the two things that you're aiming for, okay? And we've had lots of conversations about this where we've asked if you had to pick one or the other, what would you pick? And the consensus generally seems to be on having budgetary power.
Yes,
okay. And then obviously you want both, but budgetary power would be
because if you've got someone that's really available but can't make a decision and doesn't have the authority to authorize, extra additional funds, they're kind of powerless anyway, the availability.
Exactly.
But ideally you want to so let's talk about a client, let's not mention their name, but let's talk about a client where this actually happened. We had a managing director or general manager of a very large company who was the product owner.
Yes.
And he could make the decisions, was very efficient, but he wasn't as available as you would have liked.
Yeah, so he had no interest in the day-to-day running of the project. As far as he was concerned, he just wanted it finished.
Yes.
Okay, but he had all the authority to say, we're going to do three extra days in order to complete it, and he'd be like, yeah, fine, no problem. Yeah. So we had that sort of.
So he made decisions quick, but he wasn't available, and so that was obviously a challenge for you guys because we're talking about it now. What was the problem for you?
Yeah, because one of the things that we want from the product owner is this availability, because we want to get feedback from what we're building. So we want to. It's great when a product owner is fully engaged, because you can show them the new product and you can be like, okay, here it is, have a look. And really good product owners will be, first of all, they'll be like, great, and they'll jump on it and they'll start clicking and moving around, and then they'll get ideas. Okay, and they'll be like, oh, this is excellent, why don't we do more of this or do less of this, or this reminds me our competitor's doing something similar, so maybe we can add something similar as well. Whereas with this particular product owner, it was like, okay, it's ready. And he was like, okay, great, fine. When's the next bit ready? So he wasn't giving us any feedback, and he wasn't really giving us any sort of indication on which ways to move. So he wasn't really getting the full benefits of this iterative process.
Now this project was highly successful.
It's
in production, it's been used, a very complex project. So some might say, well, what are you complaining about, Gerard? And then he authorised it. But I asked you a question while we were doing the project, and I said, Gerard, it's a relatively short project in SSW's terms. I think it was about 6 weeks or so. I said, what if it was double the size? What would be the ramifications of having a product owner that wasn't engaged? And your answer was?
I thought that maybe the project might have been doomed to failure eventually, because with the lack of interest, he wasn't really steering the product in the way it could. So he wasn't making decisions. If the project had gone on for longer, those decisions that he wasn't making might have ended up causing us problems.
It become more complex. And
exactly,
you might have gone down the wrong path.
Exactly.
But because it was a relatively short project, you kind of kept it on track.
Yeah, it was relatively small scope, so we were able to work within that. But if it had gone on for any longer, then there might have been big problems. Yeah.
So you're currently on a massive project that's probably about 4 months, and if we had that product owner in this project, it would eventually, we would punt that it would end in disaster.
Yeah,
well, we would pull him in line as well. We'd have to stop the project.
Well, this is the thing. This is part of what Scrum does. Is we would have eventually pulled him back into line through our sprint retro, which we'll talk about later.
Okay, so we'll end this one and move on. But do you think before we do that, do you think you were a bit soft on him? Do you think you could have been a bit tougher on him to pull him into line? I know he's the GM of a very large business, but should you have? You were saved by the bell.
That's a great question. We were saved by the bell.
But because you were the Scrum Master at that point and a developer, what should you have done?
Yeah, I think that we should have brought it up in the retrospective. But I think that because the light was at the end of the tunnel, I don't think it was too much of a problem.
And at the end of the day, we made a judgment call, didn't we? As a team, we said, let it go.
Exactly, and that's part of Scrum is that the team decides.
Good. Let's move on.
So we've got the Scrum Master. Okay, so he's responsible for guiding the process and guiding the team. Okay, and it's his responsibility to make sure that the process and the team continually improve. Okay, so it's so now we'll go into the common pitfall here. So it's very common for somebody on the development team to take on this role.
Yes.
Because you'll always be someone in the team that will fancy this sort of role, thinking, I quite fancy the title Scrum Master. And from my experience, I would recommend that the Scrum Master be outside of the development team. Yeah. Because when you're that close to the project, it's very difficult to create that sort of separation that the Scrum Master needs. That Scrum Master needs that sort of overall looking at everything from a high, that eagle view. And just sort of like swoop down and focus on certain issues at a time. Whereas when you're in the trenches, it can be very difficult to do that.
Yeah, and what we found is that a developer who's a Scrum Master doesn't do either exceptionally well. They're kind of average at both.
Yeah,
they're context switching.
I would say they would probably be doing their development work fine, but they would be being a very bad Scrum Master, because they would because their focus is completely different. So the development team, they're focused on building the product. The Scrum Master is focusing on the process and the people. So they've just got two different focuses.
So you're saying that they'll prefer the development, do a good job there, but the Scrum Mastering will, they might not be communicating as well.
Exactly.
Now, in saying that, on very small projects, we do have the developer as a Scrum Master if the client asks for it and there's a need. And we found that on very small projects, it can work quite well.
Exactly, because you're not. They basically just in this situation where you've got maybe 1 or 2 devs, the Scrum Master is guiding a few people. He's not dealing with 4, 5, 6, 7 people, which is a completely different situation. So and this is ones where you need to learn to adapt.
Yes.
Exactly.
But it's not something you'd recommend at the beginning.
Definitely not.
And once you understand how the mechanics work and what Scrum is trying to achieve, then you can change it. And we're kind of at the stage where we're playing around with a few things because we have to be flexible with our clients. But it's not.
I also like the energy that a Scrum Master not on the team brings.
Yeah.
Because when he comes in, for him, each event on the Scrum calendar is a big event for him. So he's going to be ready, prepared for it, and he's going to be mentally preparing, and he's going to be maybe reading his Scrum books and getting everything in order. And then when he comes into these meetings, he's going to be leading them and everything like that, and it gives that big bit of energy. Whereas if you're doing it you're a developer, you'll have probably been coding in the morning before the event, and then maybe you might give it 5-10 minutes before, and you have all these things on your mind. So I like the energy.
And we've noticed that too when we have an outside Scrum Master. All right,
definitely, let's move on. So then we've got the development team. Okay, so this is a good one for Scrum. This is one of those things where you need to understand what Scrum is trying to do, okay, and then you can bend it accordingly. So in Scrum, everybody that's on the development team is the same. It's completely flat. So you have no differentiation between a developer, a tester, a designer. Everybody is on the team equally. Now, what it's trying to do with this underneath the surface is what it's trying to do is it's trying to foster that team collaboration where the whole team will look at the work to be done and they will focus on it as a team and they will get together and they will work on the item that's most important first and then just devour everything that's in that task list as a team together, this whole collaboration. And that's what Scrum's trying to do. Yeah. Now, in reality, it might be very difficult to have this cross-pollination of roles. At SSW, we've successfully merged the testers and the developers, so there's no differentiation between testers and developers.
What does that mean, merge the testers and developers?
So a developer is a tester, and a tester, those two words don't exist separately
the
anymore.
tester might write a bit of code, and the developer might do some testing.
Yeah, exactly. So they're just a team member now.
Okay.
But one of the things that we generally don't merge into this is designers, because we've found it to be quite a difficult skill to overlap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although we have been relatively successful. We have done something which is a bit different to what we've done a few years ago, and that is we used to have a developer put them on a project for a few days. A designer put them on a project for a few days, take them off, put them on, take them off.
Okay.
But now we kind of do put them on for a whole sprint, a whole 2-week sprint. They'll stay on there and they'll work with the developers to maybe implement the theme that they've created, as opposed to just creating it and hand it off to the developers.
Exactly. So we've sort of created this halfway house where what we'll say is okay, we'll save up all the designer work as long as possible and then get the designer in and have them in for a full week, and they'll be working very closely with the devs. And if we can get some cross-pollination and some people sharing tasks, then that's great. But generally you find that there is that sort of slight division between the two.
Yeah. So the pitfalls, so what are you saying? The pitfalls of working in a development team in Scrum is that you have a bunch of developers, testers, designers, who are all independent people working on different tasks. What you've got to do is make them all one unit working together as a team. Well,
okay, so what I'm really saying here is that Scrum will tell you that everybody is the same.
Yep.
Okay? And I think that I go with that concept because I really like the idea that developers are testing and people who are testing are also developing, in that whole working as a team together. So I really like that, but I think that there's some point of the real life element involved. Maybe you've got a team where, I don't know, you've got a C# expert and, I don't know, HTML expert, you know. It might be more beneficial to give the majority of the C# work to the C# guy and the majority of the HTML work to the guy, to the other guy, okay, because you're going to get things done faster. But what you don't want to end up is in that situation where you get the split of the team. So you've got to weigh it up, try and get them to working together as a team. So that's what you've got to try and get happening, is that teamwork.
Yes.
Okay, but maybe it's not always possible.
Yeah, and the quickest way to do that is testing. So you might have a HTML person and a back-end coder, but they can both test each other's work.
Perfect.
And that's the quickest way of getting them working as a team.
Exactly. Because then you're not got one person working on the eye and one person working on the ear.
Yeah.
You know, you're all working on the baby together. You know.
Okay.
So to speak.
Okay, good. Any other pitfalls with that?
No.
Okay,
that's
let's move on.
That's it. Okay, so now we'll move on to the artifacts. Okay, so one of the things we talk about is the increments. It's the increment of software. Okay, and one of the pitfalls that we get is that maybe teams try to build too much or too flat a thing. At SSW, what we like to do is try to build like slices. Going back to the baby analogy, we'd rather build the small, fully functioning, fully working piece of functionality. So rather have one fully working piece of functionality rather than 8 or 9 half working pieces of functionality. I would prefer that the increment was actually fully working and even potentially shippable.
Yeah.
Okay, potentially if I gave it to you as the product owner, you could then take it and say, thank you, I'm going to use this immediately, rather than me showing you 4 or 5 different pieces of functionality that at the end of the day you couldn't take away there and then. Yeah,
so the increment is at the end of every sprint, you hand functionality to the client that is testable and works.
Exactly.
It might be a small piece of the app, but it actually works.
Exactly.
And the challenge is a lot of times developers might work on 5 different parts. It doesn't work. It can't be tested at the end of the sprint.
Yeah.
And so the product owner is sitting there saying, great, you've done something, I still don't know what you've done, you can't really show me anything, and then they don't see the value.
Exactly, yeah. And part of what we're trying to do is get feedback.
Yes.
I want you to touch this product and to look at it and be like, I've got an idea.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what we're looking for.
And one of the things that we were talking about before the interview is, and we'll talk about it a bit later, I think, but the whole mindset shift from clients saying, how long is this going to take? How much is it going to cost? Is it a fixed cost? As opposed to focusing on, wow, these guys are giving me functionality that actually works, and that satisfies their need. It satisfies their desire to be able to show the business value for money.
Yeah.
And if you're not shipping functionality that works every 2 weeks, then they're going to rely more on, okay, what are the estimates? Are you hitting the estimates? Because they have nothing else to gauge.
Exactly, because they've got that uncertainty.
But if you're giving them little bits of functionality every 2 weeks or every sprint, we found...
Not necessarily 2 weeks.
Okay, yes. So your cycle...
your cycle, which can be 1, 2, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
No more than 3. We would recommend the shorter the better.
But if you're doing that, they care less... Our experience tells us that they care less about estimates and fixed price at that point, because they're seeing so much value. They're going, wow, I've got some more functionality and some more. And then they start to have more confidence, and they start to realise that, take their eye off the money. Is that
no, that's good. So the good analogy that I heard the other day that was great is what you can think about how Scrum works like this. Imagine you had to pay somebody to pack your suitcase for a holiday.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had a clothes rail with all your clothes on.
Yeah.
And then you had your suitcase that you wanted to take. And it was the little suitcase that you can fit on the overhead locker.
Yeah.
Now it could be, you do have a big suitcase, but you don't want to take that big suitcase, you want the little one. So what you can do with Scrum is you take your clothes rail and we very quickly have a look through the clothes and we sort them into which ones are big ones and which ones are small ones. So the jacket would be a big one, and your shorts are going to be a small one, your socks are going to be even smaller, your jumper's going to be... So we do this relative sizing, and then we'll let you move things about on the rail. So you'll be able to say, okay, well, I've heard that the weather in New York is going to be sunny, so I'm going to move my shorts to the thing, and I've got a black tie dinner on the first night, so I need my tuxedo near the front. Yeah. So it allows you to move the items, and then us as a team will take these items from the front of the clothes rail, and then we will try to pack them into the small bag. So you can think of the bag as your budget or your target. Maybe you've got a deadline or something like that. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, first sprint, we'll take 3 items and we'll try and pack them. And at the end of that first sprint, we say, oh, okay, we've packed all those items. You've now got this much space left. You've got these items to choose from. And then the person goes, oh, well, the weather forecast has changed. It's no longer sunny in New York now, It's going to be cold, so I'll move my heavy jacket to the front. Yeah. So it's this, they get this, every sprint, they get to reevaluate what's happening and then get to reevaluate what they're going to pack. And then they can also see in relation to their budget, is that suitcase nearly full? And then they might be really happy and they might think, okay, well, we've filled that small suitcase, but let's move on to the big suitcase now, and they might increase their budget, or they might just say, okay, we've packed the suitcase, let's go. So I thought that was a really good analogy for how Scrum works in that regard.
And I guess that continuous delivery of functionality every sprint cycle is kind of training the client, isn't it? It's training them to expect and to test and to reorganize their priorities, to reorganise what they actually want in the application that you're doing.
Exactly, they can see everything that's in front of them. They can make decisions as they go, which is what Agile is all about.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Let's move on.
So one of the things we have is the product backlog. So this is your close rail. Okay. This is just a list of high-level items that you want to build, and this is all in the business language. Okay, this is in the language of the product owner. Now, this could just be an Excel spreadsheet, or it could be a pile of papers, okay? And the product backlog is just what your vision is for the product in the order that you want them built, okay? So common pitfalls in regard to the product backlog is maybe the Scrum team, because the Scrum team is allowed to groom the backlog on behalf of the product owner, but it's the product owner's responsibility for the backlog.
What's grooming?
So grooming is when you you look at the backlog and you ask more questions about the items on there and get more information, and maybe you might find that two items similar, and then you might be able to merge them together or delete one or maybe break them down. So it's this constant refining of the product backlog.
Okay. Okay. And what? So the pitfalls? The
pitfalls are the fact that sometimes it's some teams are unclear as to whose responsibility it is. Okay. It's the responsibility of the product owner for the product backlog.
And it's to their make sure it's in priority order.
Make sure it's in their priority order, because the development team are just going to take the first items from the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, if you're a product owner and you're not interested in what's in that, then you're going to end up with a product that you don't want.
Yes.
Because they're going to build what's in that product.
Yeah.
Product backlog.
So really, it's the team making sure that the product backlog is continually reviewed by the product owner, prioritised, and then that's now their agenda to work from.
Exactly. Okay, perfect.
Okay, so the next one is related.
So the next one is the sprint backlog. Okay, so this is where you take a subsection of the product backlog, okay, and it becomes the sprint backlog, and this is what the development team uses in order to build the next increment of software.
Okay.
Okay. So, common pitfalls. Okay, this one is very, very common. The sprint backlog is for the development team. End of story. Okay. All the sprint backlog is it's a list of items that the development team are going to build over the next sprint. Okay. Now, sometimes the product owner will think that they have responsibility over this.
Yes.
But they don't. Because once the product owner's decided what's in the product backlog and the development team have taken the things from the product backlog and put them into the sprint backlog, it's then the responsibility of the development team to build those. Okay. This is just their mini plan, okay, for the next sprint. And it's just to help them plan the next increment of product software.
And it's their decision, so it's the development team's decision of what goes in the sprint backlog based on the priority order of the product backlog.
Okay, well, yeah, exactly. And we'll talk about, there's a bit more to it than that, but we'll talk about that in the next slides. So
Gerard, I have been the product owner on an internal project at SSW for the video team, actually.
Okay.
And I had an issue that I, as a product owner, was doing, and the development team didn't appreciate, and they pulled me up on it, which was great. So what happened is that, as the product owner, I would groom the backlog, put it in priority order, the product backlog, and then when they were in their sprint planning meeting, and they were choosing how many of the items would go into their sprint backlog, I was trying to get involved and say, oh guys, you can do an extra 2 tasks there, like you can do 2 more. And they'd say to me, I don't think so. And I'd say, look, let's count it back. Like, you've got 1 day to do that, 2 days to do, I think you can get an extra 1 in. And they would resist, but because I was the product owner, I was very forceful. And for a few sprints they did it, and then I realised after a few sprints, they're not finishing everything on. And I realised it's because I'm forcing them to do something that they told me I shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And then I spoke to the Scrum Master and he said, Marlon, you really don't have the authority to tell them what should be on the sprint backlog.
Right.
You order the product backlog, but they get to choose. And you know what? Every time they were right.
So, okay, that's good. We'll move on to that in a sec, because I don't know if that's necessarily right as well either. Okay. So we'll move on to the next one. So we'll start to look at the events. So one of the events you have is the sprint. So this is the period of time that you're going to work to build an increment of the software. So this could be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So common pitfalls with this: you have a sprint that lasts 2 weeks. Okay, you get nothing done. You think, let's increase the sprint to 3 weeks.
Yes.
Now I think the video guys wanted to do this, didn't we? And what we said to them was, decrease it to 1 week. And they were like, what? That's crazy. But if you think about it, having a 1 week cycle when you're delivering nothing allows you to focus your efforts more. So I would rather you drop down to a week and choose a lot less items and get something shippable or some product increment at the end of that week. Because the problem with it, if you go up to 3 weeks, is then you might do lots of things half done and end up with nothing shippable at the end. So this actually has a name. It's called flaccid Scrum, where you're not delivering anything. So the cure for flaccid Scrum is not Viagra. It's to shorten your sprints and to go down to a 1 week sprint and take less items on board. So we'll move on to that, what you were talking about before, when we move on to now the sprint planning. Okay, so the sprint planning meeting is where you get together. So there's two parts to the sprint planning. The first part is the what. Okay. So the what is the conversation that you have with the product owner. Yes. Okay. So when we go back to Scrum and saying that it's trying to get you to do things underneath the surface, the purpose of the sprint planning what meeting is to start a communication. Okay. So when you're having that communication with your video team, it was allowing you to look at the items on the backlog. Okay, and it was allowing you then to have that conversation with them to say what you would like, and then them to have the conversation with you, the reverse, and say, oh, this is maybe what we can do. So you were able to then refine your decisions a bit better, because if they were then turn around to you and say, we can't do that, then you might then prioritize something higher. So if they said, oh, we can't do this one, then you might say, okay, we'll take those other two out that you were going to do and put this one in instead. Yes. Yeah. And it's basically that conversation that Scrum's trying to do. Yes. So when the Scrum Master said to you that you have no authority to do that, I don't know if that's true or not, because you have the authority to move things about, but I don't think that you have the authority to tell them to do.
That's what I was doing.
Right,
I was moving stuff around, and then I'd say, you can do an extra 2. Come on, guys. Seriously, it's a week.
Yeah, and people are human. People are human, and they want to please you.
Yes.
Nobody wants to say no. They don't want to be seen of as being lazy or anything like that. So they will say yes. So
initially they did it, and it came out in the retro, which we'll speak about later. And they said, Marlon, you just can't keep doing that, because it's demoralising too. Because we had some good sprints where they were delivering everything in the sprint, and then I started adding more to push them.
Right. Okay.
And then they weren't, and we all lost a bit of motivation. I started to say why, but then I realised that they were right. They knew what they could do.
Exactly. This comes back to trust. This whole trust element as well. And I think that it's also it's finding a balance, because if you put too little in there, then there's a name for it, but you will fill up the remaining time.
Yeah.
You will make that work fill that time.
I didn't want that to happen.
But then if you do too much, you might put too much pressure on and you won't get anything done. So you need to find that right balance. And I like to always aim to have a good few PBIs in there that you will know that at the end of that sprint, you're going to be able to show them to the product. You're going to deliver stuff, because it makes you feel good as a team. Yeah. When you show it to the product owner and they say, that's brilliant, or they have ideas for future, and it's very demoralizing when you can't show them anything, or you show them bits of things not working,
Yeah. So the pitfalls of the sprint planning meeting is potentially the product owner allocating the quantity of backlog items that are to be completed.
Exactly. The product owner dominating the conversation.
Yes.
But it isn't. It's a conversation between the team and the product owner. So maybe this might be one where this is a good one where the Scrum Master is outside of this, because they can act as the intermediary.
Yes.
They can say to the product owner, look, the team's agreed to this, you're pushing them on this, maybe you should reconsider.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So we still need to talk about the planning. So that was the first part, that was the what. Then we move on to the how. So the how is the responsibility of the team. So this is where the team looks at the PBIs that they've taken and then starts to break them down. Now, they don't necessarily need the product owner at this point, but it's good to have him ready to ask questions, because say me and you on the development team, we take the first product backlog item and we look at it, and then the first thing we do is we have some questions about it, because our questions are going to be, what's this going to look like when it's complete? So we need to ask the product owner that question, give us some more information. So you still need the product owner there, but they're only there as a sort of ambassadorial, sort of like they're just there giving information as opposed to driving the process. At this point here, it's fully the responsibility of the team. They own the sprint backlog. They're creating the tasks that are going to go in the sprint backlog. They're doing all the estimation, not for the product owner, for themselves. And that's it.
Okay.
The daily scrum. Okay, so this is a meeting that happens every day during the sprint, and what this meeting is meant to be the team getting together for a period of, say, 10 to 15 minutes and working out a plan for the next 24 hours that's going to get them closer to their sprint goal. So I've been involved in probably every type of daily scrum you can imagine. And for me, the ones that work is where the team gets together. You imagine like a little huddle. They look at the goal, what have we got to build? They look at what they've done yesterday, they look at what they've got to do, and they all get together and make a plan for the next 24 hours to get them closer. So pitfalls with this is the product owner can attend this meeting, and I've seen this meeting where you have the team it's almost like a show and tell for the product owner, where they're like giving a status update to the product owner. Yesterday, Mr. Product Owner, I did this, and today I've done that. And that's not what it is. Now, I'm not saying don't tell your product owner what's going on, but this daily scrum is not for that. This daily scrum is for the team to just create a plan for the next 24 hours. It's not to show the product owner what you did. It's not to show them how hard you've worked.
Show functionality.
It's not to tell your Scrum Master how hard you worked.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just to create that plan.
So there's three basic questions that are answered very quickly and efficiently. What are they?
So that's what I did yesterday, what I'm going to do today, and then anything that's stopping me from working, which we call impediments. So any impediments that come up, it's the responsibility of the Scrum Master to remove those.
Okay, and that's after the meeting, it's removed, not during the meeting?
Yeah, so he would just make a note of them during the meeting, and then afterwards he would set about removing those.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's more of getting the right mindset for the daily scrum. Having that energy of, right, let's all get together, teamwork.
Yep.
What have we got to do to move closer? What did we do yesterday? What are we going to do today?
And I guess it's again about collaboration and communication.
Yeah,
it's the team communicating where they're at, where they're stuck, what they did yesterday, what they're about to do, so they can get an understanding of working together.
Yeah, and it's Scrum's way of creating communication. Because say me and you are working on the project, and I say, okay, well today I'm going to work on this task, and this task is I'm going to build this screen. And then you say, I did a screen like that on a different project. Have a look at here. And then I would get that information, which I might not have got if me and you hadn't have had that collaboration. So it forces this sort of communication to happen. Maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe we just create the plan and we move along. But so what? We haven't lost anything. It's 10 minutes of our day. But if we do have that conversation, or you might say, I was speaking to somebody at the water cooler the other day and they told me about this excellent tool that will save you time when doing that. It creates those sort of conversations. Now, going back to updating the product owner, I think that there is value in constantly communicating with your product owner, but I don't know if the daily scrum is... Some teams will hijack the daily scrum to do this, and I think that that's sad, because I think that you lose out on the benefit of what you get from it.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay, so then we move on to the review. I've heard this called recently, someone said the sprint demo, and I think that that's probably a better name for it. So what the sprint demo is about is, at the end of your sprint, when you finish your work, you are then going to demonstrate, to the product owner, the increment of software. Okay. And the whole purpose of this, and this is why I like the word demonstration, is that you can get feedback from what you've built. Okay, so I show you the product, and then you can have some great ideas about it, and then I can take that feedback and put it back into the product backlog, to improve the product or move it in a direction that we want to go.
Yeah, and this is where the product owner will sign off on functionality as well, saying that's to the correct standard, or
it depends. You can do that. You can do that anytime during the sprint. So I wouldn't necessarily have it as that. I would see the sprint review as, here's the demonstration of the product, because you could do it before or you could do it afterwards. For me, the important thing to come out of this is that it's a demonstration of the functionality, and it's to gather feedback. So how teams might go wrong with this, common pitfalls might be, is when they have this sprint review, maybe they're just showing a PowerPoint presentation. Maybe they're showing functionality that isn't finished, that type of thing. Or maybe for me it should be, the team being like, here you go, touch the product, feel the product, have ideas about the product, okay? And then let's move forward from there, as opposed to this sort of ticking off of all the boxes, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's just a slightly different mentality towards them.
And this is really where we were talking about with the increment before, where the features should be delivered. And this is where you're kind of delivering features. You're saying, this is what we built.
Yep.
You can see it work. Are you happy with that? And it kind of puts the product owner's mind back onto these guys are delivering, as opposed to how many hours have they done? How much is this thing costing me? I can't really see anything, so let's measure them that way. Now they're measuring you by success.
Exactly, by feature.
And also changing. What's great about this meeting is this is when you can look at it with the product owner and say, they can say, I actually want this additional bit of functionality, because they can see it.
Exactly.
And you can create a PBI or a product backlog item, add it to the sprint.
Or they might look at it and they might say, do you know what? This thing here actually fulfills the role of some other functionality that I asked for before. So actually, let's remove that from the product backlog. We don't need that anymore, because I can use this to do that. Now, in a traditional waterfall method, that wouldn't happen, because that other functionality would still get built along with it, and it would only be at the end when you'd work out, you go, oh, do you know what? We don't actually need those two. And that's one of the good things. You get that early feedback, and you can amend the product accordingly to what you see in front of you.
Great. Okay, I think we're close to the end now.
Yeah, nearly there. Okay, so last one, the sprint retro. Okay, so the sprint retrospective is the way for the team to inspect and adapt its process and the way it works. Okay, so basically this is just, it's a bit, I don't know what the word is, touchy-feely. This one, so this is where everyone gets together and talks about their problems, okay, and then hopefully we can get some resolution. But for me, I think that this is also one of the real big things of Scrum, and this might be one of those things where you might not do it, but I recommend that you follow it, and I'll give you some good examples. So let's go through what it's about first. So the first thing that you'll talk about is what went well. Okay, so everyone in the circle, holding hands, talks about what went well. Now, the purpose of this is not for everyone to big themselves up. It's for positive reinforcement. Okay, so a really good example is I was working with a client and I was contacting him daily on the telephone. And every time I spoke to them on the phone, I kept feeling like he was annoyed, and I was annoying him by calling him and asking him questions. Okay, so in my mind I was thinking, oh, I'll call him less. Then when it came to the sprint retro, and it came to his turn, and we said, what did you like about this sprint? And he said, I loved it that people called me all the time to ask me questions. So that positively reinforced my behavior. So I was able to then give him more of what he wanted. So that's a really good benefit of the retro.
You were going to pull back.
I was going to pull back because my perception was completely different. Okay. Whoa, excuse us. Bad call. Okay. 1 second. I've been
I have to turn it off, because I think Adam's pretty persistent. He's
going to be all over me, isn't he? There, he's gone. Killed him. Okay. So, I've completely lost my train of thought there.
The client who positively reinforced your behaviour.
Yeah, okay, so that's the positive reinforcement. And the second question is what didn't go so well. Okay, so there's also a bit of strategy behind these two questions, in the fact that the positive comes first and the negative comes second, because you're more likely to listen to the negative when you've also already got a positive. And sometimes, with some teams, they sometimes can skip the positive things. I think it's also good mentally and psychologically to focus on, we did do that, and that really did go well. And that's really good, and I should really be happy about that. And then it allows you then to take the rough with the smooth. So then we'll go through what didn't go so well, and then the last question is what can we change to improve the process. So then that will become then a PBI in the next sprint.
So each person gets an opportunity. So you go around the table and you say, okay, John, what did you find good about this iteration? And he'll say what he found good with the different team members or how things work.
Yeah,
and you'll go around the table. Secondly, what didn't you like about it? And he'll go through the things he didn't like, and the next person. And the last question is, okay, with all these things that we think we can improve, what are we going to improve in the next sprint?
Yeah.
How are we going to communicate better? How are we going to... And, you know, whenever I sell Scrum, because I have to sell Scrum and our methodology to clients, I focus a lot on this part.
Oh, really?
The sales process, because I always tell people that when we first enter into a relationship with a new client, we don't know them. They don't know us. They need to build trust in us. And we have to build trust in them that they're competent. Yeah. And initially the first sprint, everyone's a bit new. It's like, you know, you go to a new school, you're trying to find out who your friends are and if they really are good friends or not. But at the end of the first sprint, we say, okay, well, how can we improve? How can we become better friends? How can we communicate better? And the second sprint, we implement those changes. And at the end, we say, what else can we improve?
It's really powerful, isn't it?
It is. And then by the third sprint, I always tell clients, we become a well-oiled machine. We become a close network of people who collaborate and really learn how to build software as a group. And the team, including the client, becomes this mean machine of software development. And by the end of every project, you know, the clients, most of the time, we're working really well together.
There's a really good example of that. I won't name the client, but you might remember. And during the review, everybody mentioned the testing. And because the client had fallen short on their testing. So out of that came the fact that we were going to take one of their testers on board and become part of our actual team. So we took one of their employees, we actually put them in our office, gave them the same, they were on the same network as us, and they became a member of our team from then on. And that was really powerful. I don't know if that sort of situation might have happened. It would have probably eventually happened, but not as fast. It wouldn't have happened after week 2 on the project. You know, and that sprint retro allows you to ask those questions and then create something, an actionable task from that.
And as a team, and the client gets their input to say, make suggestions on how they can improve it. So, look, that's for me one of my favourite things about the Scrum methodology and how it's really impacted SSW and how we do projects here.
I think it's a framework, actually.
Oh, is it?
Not a methodology,
Framework, okay.
Don't ask me what the difference is.
Doesn't matter, I'm in sales. No, it does matter. So. Anyway, I was going to give an example that a mistake I always used to make that I don't think I will.
No, go on, share it.
Well, I would. To me, it wasn't a big thing. I'd always go to a meeting and call it an iteration.
Right, okay.
To clients, and I'd always get chastised because we always have this retro after the end of every sales meeting. We say, "What did I do well? What did you do well?" They always criticise me, and I think iteration sprint, it's all the same thing, but I'm learning.
Not when it comes to the Scrum White Robe. So that's it.
Okay, so is that it? I think
that's everything. Yeah. So we've covered all the events and the artifacts and the roles. So there's not really much more to it other than to get out there and master it.
Well, Gerard, thank you. Thanks for spending the time over the last hour explaining your experience. And I think that a lot of people out there who are listening now and who will listen in the future, because this will go on SSW TV, are going to get a lot of value out of your experience and what you've done. And just to you guys listening at the moment, Gerard is one of our solution architects and one of our Scrum Masters. And at SSW, we have a service where we can put someone like Gerard in your team to be the Scrum Master of your team for the first few iterations. And what happens there, if you are starting Scrum, is that you get someone with his expertise and experience and his ability to be able to manage your team and impart knowledge in the first few iterations. And by the time he leaves... See, I'm still doing that. I haven't learned my lesson. Another retro, I think. But the first few sprints, and then by the end of that, what we're hoping and what we have seen is that his knowledge will be imparted into your team. They will learn the process. They will learn the benefits of communication. And when he leaves, you can replace him with one of your Scrum Masters. And hopefully your team will learn very quickly. Because what we've learned has happened over years. And there's a lot that our guys can impart within weeks into your team. You don't have to go through the process. We also have a lot of Scrum training. If you look at our website, we've trained developers all over the world and all over Australia. So you can put some of your team members on those Scrum training courses. And Gerard's taught them.
PSD,
And that's a great way. You spend 3 days or a week and they actually go through a week. They go through multiple sprints in the week and go through all the roles and responsibilities.
Exactly, yeah. So every day you're going through mini sprints within the day to learn the process as you go. Yeah, so
and experience.
It's very enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what we've demonstrated today is that it's more than just reading a book. Scrum, to be successful, it's about implementation. It's about doing it.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
In like with the retro, inspect and adapt.
Yeah,
that's what it's about. And we've been inspecting and adapting with Agile since 1990.
Yeah.
So you can take advantage of our...
Yeah, oh, definitely. And look, we think that it's a great service that we offer. We've seen a lot of clients take it up and use it. And we want to help you. We want to help you implement these methodologies, whether you're a consulting house or whether you have an in-house team, because we believe in Scrum. At SSW, we love Scrum. It's kind of defined who we are. And so I guess it's one of our ways of trying to change the world, and change the development practices. You can also go to our rules at rules.ssw.com.au, and we have put a lot of our methodology on there that's exposed to the internet, so you can take advantage of that. So give Gerard or I a call or email us if you have any questions. We're happy to help out. My email address is marlon@ssw.com.au. That's Marlon, MARLON, @ssw.com.au. And you can find out, you can ask me any question you like and I can forward it on. Raj, we'll put the details of Gerard on the page, the web page, his Twitter address and all those kind of things, so you can contact him directly. So look, thanks for listening. I hope you got lots out of it. And don't forget to tune in or subscribe to SSW TV. We've got lots of content coming out in 2013 that will help you as a developer or you as a manager or you as a marketing person if you're looking at software to implement and to be successful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.